Same with inflation. We saw it getting double digits year over year. It's not that bad. It was okay. Great economy. And the inflation numbers anyways were massaged and undercovered, despite all of that. If you attract inflation in the same way, in the same formula that we did back in the 80s, we were hitting as much as 15, 16% year over year. I said from the get-go that this would be the story on inflation. We would have such high inflation year over year, like 10%, double digits, that what would happen would be inevitably that height of that percent that it was increasing would drop off. And then they would say, see, we beat inflation. Here's the example I gave. Because I'm not good at math, we're just going to take a nice round number. Let's say that a loaf of bread cost $1 when the day Joe Biden sworn in. And I could tell you that there's two possible solutions, or two possible outcomes. One would be 4 years later, when his term ends, the bread costs $5 a loaf. The second would be that bread costs $5 a loaf. You say, but that sounds like the same thing. But wait, in scenario one, after year one, bread costs $5 a loaf. In scenario two, after year one, it costs $2. Then it costs $3 the next year. Then it costs $4 the next year. And then it costs $5 his final year. Now, as far as you're concerned, in that final year, you're still paying $5 a loaf, 5 times more than you previously paid. But in scenario one, they would say inflation 0%. It's 0%. Yeah, because it went up 500% year one and then went up 000. But in scenario two, they'd say, oh, inflation's 100%. You could see the absurdity of that position, and Democrats understand it, because now you could make a similar argument with Trump. Wow, we're having historic days with the stock market increasing. What was it like? I think it was the S&P went up for like 30 days straight, which had never happened before. And the Democrats will correctly say, yeah, that's because it dropped so fast under Trump. Congratulations, we're back to where we started. And yet when it came to inflation, all you heard during election season was the Democrats and Biden have basically beat inflation. There's no guarantee that Trump's plans will work. But so far, it's looking pretty decent. The important part was trying something. The status quo was not sustainable for working class Americans. The increased deficit spending, basically we spent something like 20% of our debt. I forget the exact numbers. We'll find it later. That increased to like 30 under COVID, and then it stayed there. Now it's dropped down to like 23. That's still not sustainable. Even 20 was too high. The working class continues to struggle more and more. All of these jobs that we were told were created we'll talk about that in a second. The status quo wasn't sustainable. Manufacturing fleeing, increasingly relying on countries that we consider enemies like China for basic necessities, including things like ammunition. Imagine that we had to go to war with them. Look at the pandemic, a disease that was most likely created in a lab in China with funding from the United States government and Dr. Fauci. And then for the basic medical equipment we needed to try to prevent, whether it be masks, your mileage may vary on the success of them, but other simple pharmaceuticals, we had to import from the very country that sent us the virus. Something radical needed to be tried. That doesn't mean that radical attempt is guaranteed success. It's still early. We don't know. Trump's plan was to threaten tariffs to get better trade deals. So far, so good. It looks like those trade deals are coming. And the economic unpredictability that harmed the stock market seems to, so far, about broken even. Now we see good data coming out showing inflation's the lowest it's been since 2021. It was like 2.2, under expectations, despite the fact the entire Democratic Party and the majority of the media told you that tariffs would massively drive up inflation. So far, we've yet to see that. So Trump tried something. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll call balls and strikes. But we had to try something. The establishment politicians would have continued the slow, death by 1,000 cuts decline of the American working class in order to achieve their goal of sort of a neo-feudalism of haves and have-nots and a globalist agenda. They would have kept the border open, and they would have kept these disastrous policies of government spending and increased government jobs that would have continued to hollow out manufacturing in the United States and made the working class poorer and poorer and poorer until they were dependent on the government and they would be more malleable. And thank goodness Trump tried something different. And it turns out the fear-mongering so far hasn't panned out. Now, that doesn't mean that serious negative effects couldn't occur in the near future. But we were told this was it. Oh, my goodness, the stock market isn't going to rebound for years. It has. Oh, my goodness, as soon as he announced this, wait until you see the next quarter, the next period. Inflation's going to be through the roof. It hasn't been. Democrats will actively cheer for economic collapse. As I said, Bill Maher before, Stephen Colbert. The news this week has been pretty good. Billions, if not trillions of dollars of countries and companies talking about investment in the United States. Trade deals, or at least discussions occurring with not just our ally countries, but also with countries like China. The stock market's been looking pretty good. Inflation's lower than predicted, much better than the bulk of the Biden administration. Heck, if you're into that sort of thing, if you're a lefty, you even have Trump offering an executive order to massively lower the price of prescription drugs. Is it any surprise that the people that lied to you over and over and over about economic data, immigration data, heck, even Joe Biden's cognitive health, would now fear-mongering about every single thing that Trump tried would be the end of the economy? Even the job numbers that were touted, news came out this week. So in the 6 months during election season, the job numbers that were the official statistics were basically oversold by 1 million. We'll pull up the data here later if I can find it, but it was something to the effect of there was a claim that like 700,000 something odd jobs were created by the Biden administration during that time frame, and the real number was something like 300,000 lost. Even with these bureaucracies massaging the data, the American people could see through during that election season. And if they were willing to massage the data to benefit the Democrats and Joe Biden, do you think they'd be unwilling to massage it to harm Trump?